Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben, the award-winning gardening podcast as voted for by the Grow Your Own magazine and by my followers and by my listeners. I hope that you have all clicked that subscribe button. If you're new to the podcast channel, please do click the subscribe button and then you get notified of all the new podcasts that get launched. And if you're not following me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, make sure you look for Gardening with Ben and follow me on all my social medias. So sit back, relax, grab a brew and let's enjoy today's gardening podcast with Ben. Hello and welcome back to Gardening with Ben for a brand new episode. Yes, we're certainly getting them out at the moment, and if you've not listened to my recent episodes, have a listen, because one of them is talking about what seeds can be planted in August. Another one is talking about what jobs need to be done in the garden in August. My most recent one, I'm talking about everything that I've got up to this year so far at the allotment. A bit of a roundup of how we've got on throughout the year up to now. And there's still lots of time left till the end of the year. And this year I'm going to be definitely concentrating on seeing about growing stuff more and more this year, right up until the end of the year. It's going to be my first time trying this to see if I actually can keep stuff growing right the way through winter. So make sure you stay with me. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook. I've got a page on there called Gardening with Ben, and the same on Instagram and on TikTok. But no silly dances from me yet. That is the thing, yet. There may be silly dances coming up, but we will see. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about where it all began. I've covered this episode a few times on some of the episodes, but obviously we're getting more and more people listening now, and a lot of new followers, so they may have not listened from the beginning of the podcasts. So we're going to cover this topic again, because it's something good to look back on. Look back on where you started your gardening journey, to be honest, and appreciate where it all began. And it's quite a good story, to be honest, of how my gardening enjoyment began, really, because what it was in my local area, there was an allotment site. It had become derelict. There was literally one allotment holder left on the site. It was extremely run down, and the council were wanting to, obviously, if nobody were using it, they'd probably have got rid of it somehow, because there was only one allotment holder on it, so obviously they wouldn't be able to win a case if anything did happen to it. So somebody went to the council and they said, we're going to get people back onto this site and get it back up and running. And the council were like in full support. They said, yeah, we'll support you, we'll help clear it all, and we'll get it all back up and running if you can get the people on the site. And basically, my dad joined this committee of people to get people back on the site, and they managed to get the full allotment site back up and running with fantastic people, fantastic families. There were loads of people on this group, and it was an amazing community of people, because everybody wanted to see this allotment site thrive. It had not been, obviously it was like a brand new allotment site again, so new people all came in together and we were all talking to one another and enjoying it together. And it was mainly working people who took on the site. It wasn't your retired people, which everybody assumed back then that's what allotments were for retired people, and where they just spend time in the shed and enjoy being down there having a crafty beer away from the wife or the partner. But no, it was families that were joining in to do it, and my dad being part of it, he helped get a lot of funding for the site, and they managed to have roads installed on the site so that you could drive on. They managed to get storage containers on there so that you could store your tools on there and lock them up safely, and they managed to get water on site as well. There was no running water on site. They had all the standpipe taps installed, which was absolutely fantastic. And because my dad had his plot, um, I always used to go down and help him, and it was a great family thing to do with my dad. Spending time down there, helping him on his allotment, helping him with his weeding, helping him plant all his seeds, seeing things grow for myself and stuff like that. And basically, that is where it began. I was probably around 13, 14 when I started helping my dad down at his allotment. And the thing is, obviously, when I turned 17ish, I think 17, 18, I was obviously still living at home then. And I used to think, why am I helping my dad when I can have my own allotment now? Now I'm allowed to have one. So I put my name down on the list, and I managed to get a plot quite fast. There wasn't that much demand when I was looking into doing it, which was fantastic. So I got an allotment pretty much straight away. And the council came on, they brought a big digger on and they scraped it all off, all the rubbish and the rubble and the weeds, and they cleared it all for me. So it was like a brand new canvas for me. It was brilliant what they did back then. They don't tend to do that now. They'll trim it down for new allotment holders, but they won't fetch on the JCBs what they used to fetch on, which was fantastic. So they cleared it all for me and got it all ready. And obviously, being 18 and stuff, I wanted my own space, somewhere I could go and just be on my own, really, because sometimes you don't want to be around your parents all the time, do you? So yeah, it was a great time to go and enjoy myself and just be with nature, really. And back then, when I had an allotment, back in the day, talking in Yorkshire, I was obviously, there was no social media. Social media wasn't around. I think it was only at its own, it weren't at its prime like it is now. You maybe have got, I don't know how long Facebook's been around these days, but it wasn't as big as it was. So there was no like me going live down on the allotment and stuff back then. There was no researching how to do things. YouTube was around, but again, it wasn't that big. Obviously, you couldn't stream things on your phone down there and stuff back then. So it was a case of reading books and learning from the back of a packet of seeds, to be honest, because the back of the packet of seeds tells you how to grow stuff. But obviously, there weren't none of these new techniques what people are doing, all this no dig and bits like that, to be honest. There was nothing like that. So it was a case of learning everything you did by yourself, through trial and error. And that's one of the main things about gardening. It's more trial and error. Yes, there's all these instructions, there's all these tips and advice, but sometimes you learn your own tips and advice from the mistakes that you make down on the allotment. And I make many mistakes, I still do. All these professionals make mistakes. I was watching a show a couple of months ago, and even Alan Titchmore showed that he'd failed with certain stuff. And he was being open and honest, and that's what a lot of people aren't these days. People only show the best what they can do. On some of these Instagram pictures and stuff, it's people just show the best. They show it with filters, basically. They don't show stuff with no filters, and that is one thing I'm against. I always show stuff what's gone wrong and my mistakes and stuff like that, and it's good to be open and honest, because people will think, why am I failing all the time at the allotment when these people are so successful? Because they don't show you their mistakes, and that is one thing they do. So yeah, I got my allotment and stuff like that, and it's took me about 16 years to get to the top of my plot. I've just done a bit every so often, a bit more. I've continued going a bit further down every year, and there's still lots that I want to do on my allotment site. Absolutely loads that I want to do. I must admit, this past year has been the best year for work that I've done on the plot this year. I continued all the way through winter. Winter wasn't cold this year. It wasn't horrible, so I managed to get absolutely loads done. I'm hoping it's going to be the same again this year, because I've got lots planned for it. It could be massive, the stuff what I want to get done. I am going to draw up a plan of what I want to do over the winter, and we'll talk about that in another episode, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, I learned from my mistakes and stuff like that, I learnt my own different techniques. I got my polytunnel, which was the best investment. Yes, cost me £500, but 12, 13 years later, it's still standing. And sometimes you have to pay more to get the best out of it. These £100 polytunnels that you see, yes, they're £100 and it sounds a lot of money, but they're cheap and rubbish and they won't last years, trust me. I've seen so many break and stuff like that and getting them replaced all the time. Save up, even if it takes a few years, and invest in a good professional polytunnel. It's definitely worth it. So that was the best thing that I did. And then I don't know how many years ago it was now, possibly 6 or 7 years ago. What I did, I just started my own little diary on the allotment of my allotment of what I was planting, when, where, how I was doing it, if I got any spare plants for my family, if they wanted any and stuff like that. It was just basically for my family and friends to see it. And I think it used to be called Ben's Allotment Diary or something like that, my page. And then I started getting a few followers. And I'm thinking, this is a bit weird. Why are people wanting to follow me on Facebook? They don't know me. And yeah, why do they want to follow me? And I was getting comments. People were starting to like the posts. People were starting to share the posts. People were starting to ask me advice. And I was thinking, why are people asking me advice? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just learning as I'm going along. I'm still learning new stuff all the time. I don't know what I'm doing. I just make it up a lot of the time. And I was thinking, why are people following me? And it just continued to spiral and spiral and spiral. And then I thought, yes, people are actually enjoying what I'm doing and sharing it. And it's making some people happy with what I'm sharing and stuff like that. So then I called myself the Yorkshire Gardener, because obviously being Yorkshire and being from the garden. And yeah, it continued to grow and grow. More people were following me and stuff like that. And then it was mainly about 3 years ago, we had the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and you weren't allowed out anywhere at first during the first lockdown, but the allotments you were still allowed to go to. It was somewhere that you were allowed to still go to because it was in the fresh air and you weren't near anyone. So you were still allowed to go to your allotments, and that's when everybody seemed to take up gardening. Thankfully, I got all my seeds because there was a pandemic in people buying seeds. all the garden centres were sold out of seeds and trays and stuff like that because everybody took up gardening and learning how to garden, which were fantastic. It were brilliant, and I thought I need to try and press that live button on Facebook. And trust me, if you've never been live before on any platform, pressing go live is hard, because I was thinking to myself, what happens if people ask me questions I don't know? What happens if I get a lot of abuse on Facebook lives? What do I do? And stuff like that. And pressing go live was absolutely awful. And I must admit, it took me about a month to get into it and stuff like that. I didn't even go back and look at my live videos from when I first started because I was being a nervous wreck. Yes, I've done YouTube videos and stuff like that, but nobody's watching you live, and you can edit it out and stuff like that. And obviously look up answers if people ask you questions and stuff like that. So yeah, people did start asking me questions that I didn't know, and what I did, I fed it back to the audience and said, I don't know this answer. Can anybody help out? I'm open, I'm honest, and I'll share what I know. So that has always stood me in good stead. And I don't tend to get any abuse whatsoever, which is fantastic, because I follow other people, other garden pages, and they do get abuse. And I'm like thinking, how come I'm not getting any? It's bizarre. So thank you for all the people that do support me and give me great feedback and send me messages. Please do send me messages if you listen to these podcasts. It's always great to hear from people. Just send them on Instagram, Gardening with Ben, and I will get back in touch with you. I always like to hear from followers that are listening to my podcast. I don't get many, to be honest, from people listening to them, but I look at my stats every day, and I must get about 200 downloads every day or so. So people are listening. So thank you very much to those that do listen, and I do try and keep up with posting them. I know I keep splitting off and not posting podcasts for a while, but even if I'm just going to waffle on for 20 minutes or so, I'm going to try and start doing them on a regular basis again, because people do love them, and it does pay towards my seeds. Yes, there's a few adverts in it, but it all goes back into my seeds and bits that I want to do for my allotment. Like, I bought so many new plants for my allotment this year, and I've been able to talk about them, which is fantastic. I bought all my new gooseberry bushes, I bought my new thornless blackberries, which I've been talking to people about. So it all goes back into the allotment from this podcast. So if you want to help me, just fall asleep and leave my podcast channel streaming through the night, and I'll earn a penny from every episode that you listen to. So yeah, thank you for those that do listen. It is fantastic. So yeah, and then obviously I decided to change towards being called Gardening with Ben. Um, Obviously it was just Yorkshire Gardener at the beginning, and I thought, I'm getting to people all over the world now. People are listening from everywhere, which is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I've got getting loads of people listening from Canada, from America and stuff like that. So then I thought, I need to have a global name, really, something that people can relate to, because like people will just be clicking on from Yorkshire. So I changed it to Gardening with Ben. Yes, I did lose some followers when I changed my name. Some people were disgusted, and I lost some followers, and I couldn't believe it. But I don't care. The main people have stayed, and lots of lovely new people have joined, which is always fantastic. So we did that. So I was doing my Facebook, and I was doing a few YouTube videos, and then I started my podcast. Never listened to a podcast in my life. I've still not listened to hardly any podcast. I'll hold my hand up. I'll probably learn something if I actually do listen to a podcast, which is amazing. I don't think I have listened to hardly any podcasts at all. I really do need to start listening to them, because people do say they are really good, and obviously you all enjoy them as well. So then I started my podcast, doing a few podcasts every so often, once a week. And again, it started growing. I thought, blimey, people are actually listening to this, and I couldn't believe it. And podcasts are booming. This is taking up really well. Lots of people got into podcasting during the lockdowns and stuff like that. So it was quite a hard target to get people to listen to. But yes, people were listening. And then I got nominated for Best Gardening Podcast. I couldn't believe it. I've never done podcasts in my life. I've never listened to a gardening podcast in my life. How can I be nominated for a Gardening Podcast of the Year award? And what happened? We won it. We won the gold award for the Grow Your Own Magazine Podcast Award. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. So then, obviously, I started doing more podcasts, because obviously people are enjoying them, and we've got a lot of new subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed or clicked follow on this podcast, click it, and you'll get notified when new podcasts come up. So more and more people were listening. I couldn't believe it. It was fantastic. So then I started up a second podcast channel, and my second podcast channel is mainly just talking about gardening tips and gardening advice based on one topic. So it'll be based on maybe talking about strawberry runners. My most recent one is talking about growing Christmas potatoes, rather than this podcast where I talk about all different topics and have a little waffle on for 20 minutes or so. But this other podcast is usually about 5 to 10 minutes long, just short little sweet episodes for you to listen to. So if you've not checked out that podcast, go and have a listen to it. It's called Gardening and Allotment Tips Podcast, and there's a link in the description of this podcast for it. You can listen to it on any podcast platform as well, like this one. So go and have a listen to it. So yeah, that one started growing as well, and I'm really impressed with how well it's doing. And obviously then I've joined the world of TikTok, which I'm not too sure about. The main thing is with my Facebook page, my Instagram page, my podcasts, it's for that specific need. If people subscribe to or follow it, it's because they like gardening. Whereas TikTok, people are doing all these battles and stuff like that now. So there's people coming in who don't watch gardening, who aren't interested in gardening. So it's quite a new niche, and I'm still nervous over going live on there at the moment. I've not really gone live much at all, and obviously all these people are doing these battles now, and it can be a good money earner if I just pluck up the courage and do it. That's just one thing I need to do. So that might be my next step, doing more TikToks and stuff like that. But obviously technology is changing all along the way every single day, and whereas gardening, it doesn't change much every day. Yes, there's new tips and advice, new methods and stuff, but it's still the love and attention that you give to the garden which makes it flourish. And without that, without your love and attention, you won't reap the rewards from it. And that is all I love about my garden. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that does follow me, that does comment on my post. If you just comment a post on my post, I don't always reply, but I do see a lot of them. So just leave a comment. Please do leave a like. It does help with the algorithms. I know people say this all the time, just like them. It does help, and it does help spread the word of gardening and what I do and what I love and my passion for it. It does mean the world to me. And even if you share my podcast in your Instagram stories as well, that really does help me. So that has been my episode today. That is where it's all started. 16 years I've been doing my allotment, but the journey is only still beginning, and I'm still learning every single day. So until the next episode, remember, keep smiling, keep gardening, and keep listening to Gardening with Ben's podcasts. Thank you for listening to today's Gardening with Ben's podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do click that subscribe button, and feel free to share it as well on your Instagram stories. All you have to do if you're listening on Spotify is click the share button, and you can share it straight to your Instagram story for all your followers to listen to, and help build my listeners up as well and get more people listening to it. Feel free to check out all my social medias: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok. Go check it out. Check out my dancing. Gardening with Ben. And check out the link as well in the description of this podcast, where you can check out my gardening t-shirt shop, where I sell funny t-shirts with all different funny logos and designs on. And feel free to support me by purchasing one, and all the money obviously goes back into my allotment, where I can share more gardening tips with you all. So until next time, remember, keep smiling, keep gardening, and keep listening to Gardening with Ben's podcasts.